This is a little video of what happened to me last night. Check that. Here's my lovely van. Now, I was trapped underneath there for about 20 something minutes. You know, still handsome, but that was pretty bad. You don't really survive that. Be safe, wear your seatbelt.
Good evening. Welcome to the show, Earth to the Other Side. My name's John Glasspool, and tonight I'm speaking with Mike Benevi, who had a near-death experience back in 2014. And you recently discovered that you were what's called referred to as a walk-in. Super interesting. I want to talk about that. Welcome to the show, and thank you so much for being here, Mike.
Well, thank you, John, for having me. I really appreciate it, and I'm appreciative of the opportunity to tell my story to new crowds. So again, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Yeah, everything happened in 2014 when I had the near-death experience that all throughout the years, I realized that I couldn't fit in with the other NDEers because most of their stories were very common and very similar, where mine was a little bit off, a little bit dark. And what I take from my story outside of the experience is the living miracle of, that nobody even talks about that or asking about it too much, how a person can be involved in a very high speed wreck and then roll over more than 5 or 6 times, if I recall, and get out of there without even a bruised pinky. You gotta look at that too, and somehow throughout the years I was able to link it to the experience, to the spiritual experience, and all the answers, like I always say, like all the rivers somehow funnel to the sea, to the ocean. Same things, all these little pieces of information led me to know and to realize that I was what they call in the New Age walking. And there are different terms and different cultures and religions, but it's all the same thing. So, yes.
So explain to us what a walk-in is for those that have never heard of it, please.
Okay, so walk-in is I'm going to speak about my personal experience as far as what a walk-in is, and then because when I was reading about it, I was like, wow, it's exactly what happened to me. Is a moment which is not a near-death experience, because here's what I need people to understand. When you have a near-death experience, it's exactly what it is. It's near death. It's you crossing, you almost crossing over. Your soul is getting outside your body through trauma, through an accident, through illness, through whatever it is that a person is declared dead for that moment. And then they see everything. They go to that dimension, the enter the world of souls, this different consciousness, and they see that bright big light, which is because I saw the same light, but to my understanding, we see our own light. We are made out of light. So we're looking at ourselves when we get into this near death. So we're crossing, we're elevating, we're almost getting there, and then we return to our bodies. When in the walking, you have a trauma, usually it will come in a split second. So how do you terminate, if you would, a human being? How do you make them pass in a split second? It has to be some sort of a trauma. It can't be a long lasting illness. It can't be something that just gets worse over days or hours. It needs to be something instant. So usually it would be an accident, it would be a crime, it would be a traumatic event where you literally just take a soul, take it to the principal's office, say, hey, you hold on for a minute because you've been naughty, and I'm going to take over. You are going to go, but then there is a conflict. Like, I don't want, like, my old me didn't want to leave the body. So there is a bargain. The bargain is that I get to keep my memories. I get to keep some of or most of my characteristics. I get to keep those who love me. Nobody's really losing me, though I am lost. And another soul comes in and is completely different, completely contradicting the previous lifestyle. And this is what I'm living now. Completely. I look at what I used to be obsessed with or in love with now, and I'm like, I stay away from it like fire. And then you have the part where you have trials in your life that somehow plant you in situations and in places where you almost have to help people. You know, if it's a hospital where I'm like this security guard at night with all the psychiatric patients coming and there's violence and chaos, and then I walk in there, close the door, and then everybody's happy after a few hours, and then it happens to me and I don't understand why, and I don't do anything special for that to happen, but I'm realizing that I'm like a lot of things happening to me, but I need to be in some other people's lives journey to help them, and then looking back, I'm like, wow, this is what a walk-in is. You come in here, you swap souls, you are not really dead, you are just walking away. That's why it's and somebody else walks into that body. The only difference is because we need to keep the memories, we need to keep a part of this consciousness in, is that nobody knows, nobody buried me, nobody considered me dead, though I know what happened. So this is something wonderful. And another proof is that you can't do a near death, like you can't do a walk-in while you're severely injured that individual in order to walk in. Like this is not part of the deal. Like you have to be swap soul through a traumatic event, but unharmed, like untouched. And that's exactly what happened to me. I was untouched.
Interesting. What happened to the soul that was inhabiting your body, Mike's body originally?
Prior to
Where did he
that,
go?
to the
Yeah.
world of souls, to what people refer as the afterlife,
Hmm.
where we all go, where we all come from.
Okay.
And that person, that old me, it wasn't he wasn't a bad person, never did something bad, but the lifestyle and he was a rebel against spirituality. It was to a point when like his loved ones were affected by it, so that needed to happen.
Hmm.
And it's not a bad thing. A lot of people look at passing or death or something before its time as a bad thing. For some people, if I promise you salvation before your time, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's a good thing.
Hmm.
So, but again, it happened in a way that nobody really suffered. And only people that know the truth are the people that know me. Well, some people that know me think that I completely lost it or changed dramatically because they're like, what happened to you? And you can go ahead and try to explain and jeopardize the friendship, or you can explain, if to some you explain and they're kind of like, oh, interesting, and then I really take it seriously. Of course, the loved ones and my twin flame, we live that every day. Like she sees these miracles happening in our lives. She knows exactly the stories. She knows she could compare, and she knows that I'm a different person than who I was. And I came to peace with that. Before that, I thought that I'm losing it myself.
Did which soul experienced, I guess, the traumatic, actual car accident, the actual near death part? Did you both experience that, or was it just one or the other?
I think that what happened with the walk-in happened exactly the moment before impact.
Okay.
Uh, this is the time, there's a crucial time right before a person passes. And I know that the world refers to it through, I'm seeing my life running through my head or running through my, you know what I mean? Like running through my eyes. I see my whole life running through my eyes, which is pretty much like a turbulence of emotions. Like we all expect to pass in our sleep or pass instantly so we don't feel any pain, so we don't feel any fear. And I had the moment before the impact, which I'm sure we'll get to that in details, but that I saw like death coming. Like I had everything slowed down, time slowed down. So like I felt like I had a few seconds to like realize what's coming up. And I know that normally the old me would I was a martial arts instructor for over 20 years. The old me would dodge, would block, would do anything you could to instantly avoid that impact. But instead, I'm holding the wheel like I'm welcoming it, and I'm smiling like this big smile. And I remember that back then, I was like, "Who's this person?" Like I'm supposed to get really like on my toes right now, and just terrified, and do like emergency like procedures in my head, and operate that situation. And instead, I welcomed it. Like I was like, I felt this warmth. I'm like, yes, this is the first time, and it was before the impact that I realized I felt like I was possessed, but in a good way,
Mm.
like nothing demonic, because a walking is, if you think about the equivalent, the evil equivalent for walking, for a spirit that's going to come and make you do evil stuff, that's possession. Demonic possession is also walking, but people call it demonic possession because it's a walking that creates bad to the person and to those around it. While walking, it does the complete opposite. You have a good soul or a bad soul, just like in real life here, you have good people and less good people.
I wonder if you recall any of your personal memories of prior to entering, into this world, into Earth, and swapping souls. Do you remember where you were just even moments prior?
All I can remember, and it's also because how I see society nowadays, is that I belong to generations that are way, way, way prior. I go back to biblical times. Um, when I say biblical times, I'm not talking about the stories from the Bible, but biblical times, I'm talking about the creation of the world.
Mm,
Um, yeah.
that's
So I'm going
interesting.
to those times of where the world was just, where humanity was just getting its morals.
Do
And
you think that
and
Mike or
and
yourself knew precisely at that moment about the concept and let's call it the swap or the walk-in? Do you think you both knew at some particular moment that this was meant to be, this is what was happening, and you just embraced it? Or
this current
or
soul, this current personality, this current being that's talking to you, that's myself right now, no. But just like a baby in the birth canal or in the womb knows exactly about the world of souls, because in this consciousness, a baby is still in the world of souls until they come to this world, started crying and having complete different consciousness. They're finally breathing air. They're not feeding out of an umbilical cord. They're completely changing consciousness, just like a butterfly after being cocoon and prior to that, a caterpillar. Completely different consciousness. So the soul, the new one that's talking to you now, once it entered the body, it went to panic mode. It lost all of its memories at first.
mm,
I do remember memories from the old Mike, but what's funny is, or maybe sad in my case, that everybody I remember, I don't feel emotional attachment to. I just remember them as part of who I am, I was, and he was.
okay.
Yeah.
So let's go back to the night then of the fatal or near fatal, at
That
least
morning, the
the
morning
morning,
of.
sorry, the morning on in 2014, where everything dramatically changed for both of you. Can we just go back to that and describe to me what happened and exactly how, like if you had an OBE or if you saw, like what did you see? What happened back then?
Absolutely. So it's very important to remember, when I to remember myself when I tell the story, is that to tell people about prior to the accident. I was working as a correctional officer in a maximum security prison in
Mm,
Illinois called Menard. It's notorious. It's well known for its vicious inmates, and the building itself looked like Dracula's castle, like it's from the 1800s. It's a really, really bad place to work in as far as energies. But prior to the accident, I was a materialistic person. I was chasing the money and the state job and the benefits, and I didn't care what's around me, what I do, what I soak in every night. And I used to work the night shift, and I witnessed, and of course, I'm not going to go not even closely to details, but I've experienced horrific shifts. A lot of people don't know this is the true underworld. If you gather all the worst criminals of this in the state of Illinois and put them in this maximum security prison, and it's called maximum security for a reason, and they're mostly up at night, you witness different scenarios that are not good for your soul. Let's put it that way. And I didn't realize at the time that I'm soaking in these energies, and I was trying to block it off. I was trying to go back home to my kids and just know that this is a job. And but it got to me. It got to me to a point when I used to come home after the night shift and not be able to sleep, or have nightmares when I do sleep about, bad things happening in the prison to me or to my family. So anyways, I used to lose a lot of sleep. So I used to be tired. They used to mandate us to work overtime, and the shifts were 14, sometimes 16-hour shifts. And I used to commute to work an hour each way, and just middle of nowhere cornfields, Midwestern America. And there was the morning of the accident when it was a Tuesday morning, my day off. So because of my seniority, I didn't have weekends. I only had a couple of years, and so I ended up having Tuesdays and Wednesdays off. And that Tuesday, they could not mandate me to work overtime, and I was just getting ready to go home, and I was excited to do what I do every time I go home, which is that 1 hour drive. And I got into this minivan that I had, and I'm heading to this road, and 7 a.m. morning, and I remember it was just like another regular, and I didn't feel tired. I didn't feel anything specific, and I'm just going into that road, and that road was empty at the time, and the speed limit was 70 miles per hour, and I'm doing the speed limit. I'm in my uniform, of course, and all of a sudden, I don't know if I closed my eyes. I don't know if I dozed off. I don't know if I was distracted. I really don't know what happened, but I remember opening my eyes, and then the wheel completely locked and the brakes locked. Like I felt like the car was turned off, even though it was on and running, and it felt so strange. And I started hydroplaning out of nowhere, like spinning. And I remember that instead of freaking out, I was trying to control the situation, and I'm looking at the speed gauge, hoping that it's going to just go down and decrease. But instead, I'm seeing the speed going up. So from 70, it was 75, and 80 and 85. For some reason, it created uh, a reaction that caused the speed to increase. And then I remember in the other lane, in the opposite lane, was a car coming in there, and I was able to take a close look. And I saw a woman, and there were two kids in the back. It was 7 a.m. It was the weekday. It was time for them to go to school. So I realized I processed right away that it's a woman that takes their children to school. And I remember telling myself, no matter what happened, I'm not going to be in charge of these people's, you know, uh, harm or injuries, or God forbid death. And I remember that with everything I had, I steered the wheel to the right, and here it was this big concrete uh, uh, post or something like that, divider, and I'm heading to it at, I was like 80 miles per hour, something like that, 75, 80 miles per hour. And I remember that I'm looking at it, and I had no control over the vehicle. And I'm like, I'm not making it out of this thing. There's no way in the world, because I know. Suddenly, I remember that I just smiled. I had no fear. I'm like, I had this feeling like, hey, everything's gonna be okay. It's almost like it's just a dream. Somebody's gonna wake you up. And I'm like smiling and laughing, and then part of me was like, what are you doing? You're about to just. And then the old me thought that I'm smiling because I thought to myself, like, is this how I'm going to go? Like, in my car, in my uniform, on my day, like after a shift, like I don't see. And I thought that maybe I'm laughing because of that, but no. But then there was another part of me that's saying, just hold on and enjoy the ride.
Mm.
And then it was this biggest explosion sound I've ever heard in my entire life from the impact. And after the explosion, I remember that I saw that airbag deploying slowly. You see like a piece of cloth like in the wind, just like moving slowly. And you can tell that this is the airbag deploying. And this is exactly the moment when I don't remember anything. And then the next thing, I'm upside down. I can look around me and see that the van, like especially the driver seat side where I was completely crushed. It formed some forks out of sheet metal, and they're all crossing the driver's side like a cross, meaning like whoever was in the driver's side should have been decapitated. That's how bad it was. And there are pictures and videos that show that. And I'm there. I know exactly what happened. I know exactly where it was. I remember even dozing off. I remember the lady. I remember hitting everything. Nothing was. It's not like I was like I lost it and I just lost my memory. And I no. First of all, I remembered everything that happened. So I realized I was still in my consciousness. However, it was the best feeling I've ever felt in my life comparing to the situation. I lost all my senses one by one. It's almost like fluorescent lights that just turn off one after the other slowly until I get to the vision. That's the only thing that stayed. There was absolutely no sound. And this is the thing that got me excited the most at first. It's like the sound was sucked out of this universe. It's like sound does not exist. You can mix sound and consciousness. Well, in this world you can because this is how you connect, music to high worlds, but then you don't need sound. And it was this world. It was I was upside down in that cornfield, like everything was I wasn't anywhere traveling to somewhere else, and the sound was gone. Obviously, there was no pain. I don't feel no touch, no smell, and I felt like somebody is there with me, having my back, without seeing it, just feeling it. And how do I explain it? John, at times in the dark, if we go to an unfamiliar place and we are in complete pitch darkness, sometimes there is a feeling, some of us feel as if somebody is there with us. We almost can feel like somebody's breathing on us. And I know we don't see anybody and somebody probably is not there, but we have that feeling that something's there with us. So I felt the same feeling, but the opposite. I feel like something is good, something is very amazing, is just here next to me. And doesn't matter that I've been in an accident, I'm okay. And I did not want to leave. It's almost like I was just laying on grass in a beautiful day and I was just the most relaxed and I felt the most amazing. And the thing that really, really got me to realize that I was not in my body was that my thoughts disappeared. Now, how do you explain it to somebody who's constantly thinking? We in this world constantly think. You can be in the most relaxing of places and be worry free, but you will still be thinking about how much you relaxed. Like you'll still think about what you want to eat for dinner and how much you want to spoil yourself. The thoughts are always there from the moment we are born. But over there was no thoughts. So you just exist and you are just yourself. You're the light, you're the warmth, and all that stuff that people talk about. And I look out the window. Everything is the same, but a little grayish. It's almost like foggy, but it's this world. And again, no sound, no touch, just the eyes are operating. And I see a lady outside. She was dressed like in 1800s clothes, and she was all dressed in black with a headscarf. She was in her mid 60s. And the only thing I could notify about her that she had a burn scar on her right or left cheek. I don't remember, but it was like a burn scar that you could notice. And she stood outside, and I remember that I couldn't talk, so I was waving with my arms at her so she can help me and get me out of there at least. And all she did was she was pacing back and forth, and she just nodded no, like she didn't say anything. She just nodded no, no, she didn't want to help. And I just kept on begging and doing this, and she wouldn't help. And I remember this is one of the second time that I realized that I'm not in my body, it's somebody else is there. I the old me would have judged her. The old me would have get mad. The old me would have get upset and not realizing why she's not helping me. But then I remembered that I was like, well, don't judge her, Mike. Maybe she's just scared to cause more harm than to do any good. Maybe she's just worried that the car is going to set on fire. And all of a sudden I was just speaking as I was her advocate and I was just advocating her. And I remember it was like, wow, like this is not me. And I was like to myself, I was like, just close your eyes, enjoy this bliss, and try to wake up stronger and get out. Because I wanted to get out, but just everything was crushing, but I didn't feel anything. The second I closed my eyes, it wasn't even a split second after, and I opened them. and everything just came back to life, just like a pause movie. You just play it again. The sounds, the smell. I felt a little pressure. I could smell gasoline. Of course, I could see and hear everything, and people are screaming outside. And I take a peek, and I'm still crushed in a car upside down, and completely with the same swords that I was talking about. And this paramedic is screaming at me not to move, not to move. And I told him, sir, I'm okay. And I was okay. I was perfectly okay. I've never felt better. I was like, sir, I'm okay. I'm okay. And he kept telling me that I'm not okay. He kept telling me that I'm not conscious, and I'm talking out of just shock or something like that. He kept telling me that he thinks that all my bones are broken because of the nature of the accident. He kept telling me not to move. So I played along. I was like, you know what? He's gonna win this argument, so I'm not gonna move. And I remember that I look outside and I see dozens of people in police cars and fire trucks. And I remember him giving me IV through the window. And I said, sir, why are you giving me IV through the window? Just get me out of here. I'm okay. And he was like, please be quiet. You're not okay. He was very hostile. And he was panicking, I guess. So I let him do his thing, and I closed my eyes, and I hear the drilling and the knocking. And he told me that he couldn't get me out because the jaws of lives are required, which is this hydraulic machinery that rips out the car and extract the passengers out. And the firefighters arrived with that, and I hear them digging and drilling and hammering in the car. And all of a sudden, they got me out. They gave me a morphine shot to my stomach against my will. Nobody asked me prior to that. I was fine. I wasn't even experiencing any pain. And I kept telling him that, but they rushed me to the emergency room in the ambulance, and I'm there in the ambulance, and there was this sheriff's deputy writing a report, and I'm like, excuse me, man, can I ask you a question? And that lady was like, I know you better rest now. You've been through a terrible accident. We can talk later. I'm gonna have to take a report from you anyways. And I was like, well, I insist, but can you please answer me one question? She said, what it is? What is it? And I said, um, isn't it against the law for a citizen not to help another citizen in distress? And she was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, well, that lady was there and she didn't even call you. And I waved at her many times. And she was like, there was no lady. We were the first in the scene. There was nobody there. The paramedics were the first ones. There was absolutely nobody there. And then I connected the dots, and I was like, my experience, the fact that I'm okay and nobody was there, there's something going on. Something happened. I get to the hospital, and I remember, just like VIP, they're all running around, screaming around me. And here I am sitting, not panicking, knowing that I'm okay. And they bring the MRI and the CT scan, and they scan my brain and they scan my bones. Every little bone was scanned. And then an hour and a half, 2 hours after, this doctor comes to the room and said, I'm going to have to let you go. And I was like, the people that were there with me, my ride, were like, what are you talking about? And he was like, he doesn't even have a bruise. Nothing. 85 miles per hour impact, 6-time rollover, not even a bruise.
Wow.
And then I realized that's what happened. And then the visions came, and the dreams, and all the mediumship stuff that I inherited without even asking for it. And then I knew. Recently, I realized it's just another soul that's in there. When you said traveling between dimensions, it's traveling between consciousness. It's like, it's hard to explain because you can't travel to these dimensions, but you can experience them in your consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing because it's individual. It's an individual journey. Our souls. That's why you can never go and travel to the afterlife with a buddy.
Right.
Or take a ride to the afterlife. And everybody's afterlife is different, and everybody's experience is different. One can wake up in a field of flowers. One can wake up in there and here. But I know that with me, it was a swap, one for one. It was almost like a flash of moments where I experienced that consciousness, and I was like almost in a waiting room. And then I wake up, I'm a different person.
Mm-hmm.
But walk-ins have to go through a lot of depressions to realize they're walking, because your personality completely changed. And it's a battle. There's still battle between the memories, between who you used to be, between who you're becoming. Like I said, it's like a baby. A baby go through a lot of stress before the rebirth of something new and exciting and happy. But another thing to explain, an analogy, but between the NDEers, the near-death experience people, to the walking case. Imagine the people who go through near-death experiences playing a board game. And prior to the NDE, they kind of get disqualified for the game, from the game, and then they come back to the game smarter than ever. Somebody who's a walking, it's usually a soul that lived through centuries. You can't bring, it's almost like you bring an instructor down to earth, soul instructor, if you would, to help people. See, I never got disqualified from the game, but I played the game over and over and over. It's like Monopoly. I collected my $200 each time, and I've built houses everywhere. And I'm here to walk with the players. They roll their dice. It's the same thing with near death. Near death players are still playing. They got disqualified. They went into jail. They got get out of jail card. They came back to their body to tell people, hey, this is what happened to me. And it's just like people that encounter aliens. Some people will call them crazy. Some people will be like, oh, it's so cool. I wish I was with you when it happened. Trying to convince people, it's just different. It's a matter of approach. I help people who want to wake up spiritually, and I pray for those who don't.
That's wonderful. Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. Like, so how are you how has this affected your current life with what you do and how you are assisting people with depression and anxiety? And let's talk about that a little bit. What exactly have you been
Yeah,
up to?
yeah. According to the principle of synchronicities, I happen to have a very complicated back surgery about 12 weeks ago, back fusion, and the recovery from that, at least in my case, is to 6 to 8 months. So it made me stay at home, where I was still doing motivational videos. I always post on my Facebook page, just daily motivational videos to speak to the soul. And even if I am towards one person that it speaks to, then I know that I've done my fair share for the day. So I kind of, you kind of like shoot an arrow out there and then hoping somebody, will accept it and will take it as an advice. And I do that. So when I did that, I think I told my story, or I found out I was a walking, or the term walking back then. And I had a few interviews about that. And then I told people what I do in the interviews, that I help souls, especially dealing with the loss. So there's a lot of people out there that experience losses, either in family or loved ones. And when I speak to them, I kind of connect to their soul, tell them my experience, tell them where I came from on the soul level, and give them and plant a lot of seeds of hope. And usually, or not usually, so far it's 100% success rate. These people completely change after that conversation, and do have hope, because these people, unless you speak to them in that spiritual language, you can't take a doctor. And what I do is by far not a medical advice, or not there to replace medical advice. I just give soul advice, like a soul guide. I tell them what I've been through, and I'm telling them, hey, there is no such thing as death, and your loved ones are there and they love you. I don't do mediumship more than I do readings to those who are alive. I connect. I light the spark. Everybody, all of us have that light bulb inside of us, and some of us have very dim light. So think about me as an electrician. I come there through speaking. I somehow connect, and that's the abilities that came with being a walking. See, I could have come and just be a medium and tell people about, oh, your loved ones are there and they're fine and they love you and they miss you. But I'm more teaching people the tools of how to ignite their own soul, so they can maintain communication, so they can have hope, so they can help people. I help people spiritually awake
Mm-hmm.
and dealing with a lot of hardship. So that's and I do it daily from people from all over the world. It's amazing, and they all have all these things in common. It can be this village in Indonesia that I help somebody, through India, through Texas, through LA, Hawaii, dozens and dozens of people. I was able to help, to guide their soul, and to be like a soul doctor.
Soul doctor, I like that. Or do you have any message to any to our viewers about, based on your experience? You can.
Yes, I have a message. First of all, I'd like to appreciate you, John, and what you do, because shows like yours is helping a lot to people to wake up and to open up their mind and to be in this consciousness, because this is food to the soul. Think about yourself as a gymnasium for souls.
Okay.
People watch you, people watch your content, they work out, they develop soul muscles. So I tell people this, no matter what you go through in life, just know that life is short, that life is temporary, that life is almost like an illusion. I call this world the world of lies. Pack in your spiritual backpack every good deed you can, because that's the only tool that's going to be available for you when we pass. And we're all going to pass. It's not a bad thing to see that. And try in your life to do anything in your power, and you know what's good for your soul, to realize that you are a soul that happens to have a body and not a body that has a soul or maybe doesn't have a soul. Don't get into this debate. Know who you are. Once you know who you really truly are inside, you'll be able to live your calling. And there's nothing better than living your calling. Everything else just fades. Everything else just loses its importance. I could have chased. I've done it all in my life. You know, I can compare the two. You know, I'll tell people I had it all, but I had nothing. And now I have nothing, but I have everything.
Yeah, yeah, I
This is
understand
my
that.
message.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I think what you're doing is absolutely beautiful, and
Thank you.
I hope that your healing, progresses quickly, and then you keep on
Thank
doing
you.
this and with the same
Thank you so
intensity
much.
because it's absolutely
Thank you.
necessary, needed, and grateful to have you.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'll tell you one last thing. You know, true happiness to me is literally not be able to wait for the next morning to come. Like I wake up every day way before sunrise to welcome creation. I'm just so happy to be alive and so happy to impact souls. Until my time is done, at least I know I've done the right thing. So I appreciate you for having me as well.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for being you. The world needs people like you.
Yeah.
We need more people like you.
Thank you, and likewise. Thank you. Same
Thank
for
you
you.
so much. I really appreciate your time and for being with us today.
My pleasure. I'm looking forward to see that video.
Me too.